Hello everyone, welcome back. Yelling at IT staff does not make a business continuity plan. This is from a few years ago. I was working at a medium-sized company as an IT sysadmin. The company had just recently moved to a new location that was able to more comfortable accommodate its operation. It had an on-site call center as well as a medium-scale manufacturing/repair center. Since we were new tenants and everyone was now under one roof, many things were still being figured out. One day, we got notice of a gas leak in the manufacturing area. We didn't have an alarm system for a gas leak, so people were running around telling everyone else that there was a mandatory evacuation of the building. The IT people all had laptops, so we all grabbed them and made our way to our cars. By coincidence, our director of IT and the head of IT support were on a business trip. As I'm walking out the door, the call center director, I'll call him Cal, start yelling at me and the other sysadmin. "Hey, what are you guys going to do? Go to our cars." No, you can't. We can't receive calls. You have to do something." I turned to my coworker and we both realized that the call center still used desktop computers and soft phones. They couldn't do their job. Cal was red in the face, trying to slowly let people out the door to the outside. It was then that the fire department arrived, probably to clear out the building officially. So I asked Cal, "What's your plan if there's a fire?" "Just do that." "What?" "No, you need to do something." I shrugged. "We can't do anything. The phone system probably doesn't work off of VPN. I was guessing at that. Just follow your plan if there's a fire." "You guys never gave us a plan for a fire," Cal responded. Because of course it's IT's job to develop a business continuity plan for the entire company. More people were streaming out. It was then I decided to ignore him and go to my car. I tried to call the director of IT in the slim chance the airplane diverted or was delayed. No answer. I looked up in the company SharePoint site for a business continuity plan or fire plan or something, but only found stuff for IT, including our off-site backup servers and how to run IT operations from VPN. There was nothing about moving our soft phones to slash through VPN. Cal knocked on my car window after everyone was out of the building. "Well?" I explained that there was no business continuity plan in the SharePoint site and IT didn't have anything in place to shift the soft phones to VPN. Plus we didn't have enough laptops to support even half the call center. Cal didn't like my answer and walked over to the CEO, who was the fire department. I could see Cal pointing at me and yelling. Clearly we were losing business. And clearly it wasn't just IT's fault, it was mine and mine alone. The fire department cleared us to go back in after about 45 minutes. Later that day I had 2 meetings with Cal and the COO scheduled. Since IT was missing both leadership positions to travel, I was the scapegoat. The first meeting was cancelled and the second the CEO stepped in and cancelled it, since it was really the job of the director of IT and a lowly sysadmin shouldn't be in these meetings. Nothing bad happened to me when the IT director returned. And the company hired a consultant to develop an actual business continuity plan for fires, weather and other events. Turned out, IT shouldn't have a button they could press in the event of a gas leak. For several months Cal scowled at me after that every time we passed in the hall. Our next story: your internet link is down. That might be because it's on fire. Late one December evening a number of years ago, I got an unexpected call from my boss. He said there was a fire at the office, and I might want to come in and see what was going on. So I did. By the time I got there, the fire was on its way out, and I and a couple dozen others were standing around in the parking lot waiting for the firefighters to give us the all-clear to enter the building. We had internet service through an awesome local ISP at the time. The kind of small company that really cared about service. While I was shivering next to a fire truck, my cell phone rang. It was one of their techs, whom I had shared on Office with at a different company years ago and knew well. Me: "Hello? Tech, hi, this is Tech from ISP. Just wanted to let you know that our monitoring noticed your internet link is down, and we're working on it." Me: "That might be because it's on fire." Long pause. Then: "Tech, did you just say it's on fire?" Me: "Yeah, there was a fire in the building. I'm standing next to a fire truck right now. They aren't letting us in yet." Then, without missing a beat, Tech said something he never said at that ISP: "Remember, premium service." Tech: "Ah, well okay then. I'll assume the problem is on your end." Click. Despite the cold and the uncertainty, how badly damaged was the office, etc., I couldn't help laughing at the absurdity of it all. Because ISP was awesome, Less than 5 minutes later he called back to say, I just checked, and we have 2 portable generators that aren't in use right now. If you need them, just say the word, and I can have them there in 2 hours, anytime, day or night. No charge. Our contract with them had nothing in it about generators. Our next story, get the scripts before you fire your IT. I was working for a large warehouse and customization company under contract through another company, and recently they had been talking about cutting people in shifts to make up for the lack of sales during the summer and wanted us to show our worth. The IT manager asked me, since I was the last hire, to show my worth and why I should not be cut. 80% of what I had to do in the first 3 months, I had gotten down to simple scripted fixes by talking to the software vendors and learning the fixes. Plus, I reduced turnaround time on broken RF guns by actually looking at how to repair them and which of the parts from the old guns being replaced were compatible with the new models. I presented all of this to him, and the following week, I was notified by my contract manager they were letting me go. Fine with that really, as seasonal was coming up and the no drug test or background check hires were the worst each year. 2 days later, I get a call from the manager demanding the scripts I used. While at the job, they never provided me with any tools and they told us to use our own if we needed it. I had never put the scripts on the server or on my work computer. I checked my contracts for any clause for files or documents I created while on the job, and then proceeded to tell them they were not worth me keeping my job, so I deleted them when requested to format my drive upon termination. But they could keep my screwdriver set in my drawer so they can have one in the office. For those who can't keep up, the scripts were made on my own time off the clock, talking to software vendors because they are closed during my night shift. They never left my USB drive and were deleted per request for my drive being formatted on termination. I was a contractor, and the scripts would belong to my contract company and not the company I was sent to, if any. They already said they don't want them, so I am safe. They don't make money if I am not there. Our next story, your instructions are stupid. We have a pretty simple system. You ask for something, and you get something. With me so far? It really is that simple for the user. We have to do some crazy routing on our end depending on what something is, but that is an entirely different story. There is also a big button that says, click here if you want something for someone else. With a giant red warning underneath that says, hey, if you don't use that big button right above, the something you ask for will be for you. We even have an are you sure you don't mean you want IT for someone else? You already have something if the system detects you already have something. So, enter user A. This user supports many other users. The department might get a lot of turnover because every month they get at least one new person. Or maybe they're expanding? Who knows, not my problem. Like clockwork, the second Monday of every month, we get a ticket. I asked for something for a new hire, but they never got it. Please fix. I'm not kidding. Literally, every second Monday of every month for the last year or so. Can you guess what went wrong? Let me give you a hint, it has something to do with someone not using the giant button and not reading the 2 different warnings or pop-ups. I had gotten really tired of sending user A the same email every month. Please use the button to ask for something for someone else. We'll send the ticket over to finance to swap the charges. That email also contains very detailed step-by-step instructions. The rest of my team had also gotten tired of hearing from user A, so we decided to not help this time, with manager/director backup. We disabled the ability for user A to submit tickets. They must call the help desk for tickets now. We also didn't forward the current ticket to finance. We sent user A a strongly worded email that basically said, look, you do this every month. We told you how to do this the correct way for a year. If you still can't figure it out, you're on your own and all these charges will fall on you. We attached the last 12 months worth of tickets and CC'd user A's boss. User A must have not noticed her boss was CC'd on the email because we got a nasty email back. What do you mean I can't open tickets anymore? And why am I getting charged for IT? Do you know who I support? You will fix this now or my boss will hear about this. Insert other comments about how stupid the system is and how incompetent my team is and other unprofessional language. The email was also largely in caps. We didn't get around to responding until after lunch, but as it turns out, we didn't need to respond anymore. User A's boss had apparently responded. I apologize for the behavior of user A. Please don't let her behavior affect the wonderful support you provide to our department. User B will now be responsible for interfacing with your team to get something for our new hires. Please grant user B the permissions user A previously had. I've read through the directions you sent user A and tried it out. It worked as expected. User B will be using those directions to complete her work. Also, please see ticket hash for terminating user A's network access. We terminated user A's network account with pleasure. Our next story, the best 75-year-old user ever. It's been a bit since I've posted, so quick rundown. I work for a small software company doing IT and customer service work supporting the users of our order writing software. We brought on a new company 6 months or so ago, and along with it, came a sales rep we'll call Virginia. Virginia is 75 years old, not good with computers, but has the best sense of humor and understanding I've ever had from a client. Every time she calls in, she's always got something to say, which usually ends in a, "I hope you've got your Valium nearby." And she considers us all wizards. We recently updated our software and sent an email out notifying users of this. She calls in yesterday, and we chatted up while I explained to her that yes, this was a real email, not spam, and that she should in fact update her program. She says, "Okay, I'm going to try to be a big girl and update this myself, but stay by the phone." A few minutes go by, and the phone rings. Sure enough, it's her on the caller ID, so I pick up without using the standard greeting and say, "Hey, Virginia." She responds, "Darn, how did you recognize me with my hat and fake mustache on?" I lost it for a bit. Having a long week full of incompetent, ignorant, or intentionally destructive users was washed away because this little old lady told the most dad-like joke over the phone. Our next story. Modern Warfare needs 1 terabyte of RAM. Hi all. Mandatory LTL, FTP. On mobile, so formatting will be a bit sketchy. Disclaimer, I'm not in tech support but hopefully will be eventually after completing my comp sci degree. I was in a team viewer session with a colleague about 10 brief minutes ago when I discovered to my distaste that his 2 terabytes HDD was filled to the brim, as was his 120 gigabytes SSD. Upon inquiring what was using such immense portions of precious digital real estate, I was met with the standard, "I'm not sure, it's always been like that. I just delete stuff when it's too full to function." Type response. Enter WinDearStat to save the day. For those of you unaware, this little app displays the contents of your drives in a graphical layout, with the size usage of each file proportionately scaled to the others. Normally, one can expect a large block of medium-sized files, some downloaded videos, a few Steam games, but never in my years have I opened the application to find one giant monstrosity of a block consuming well over half the poor 2 terabytes drive, barely leaving other little files to squeeze in around the edges, clawing desperately for some leftover 1s and 0s to call home. The seasoned among you will have already guessed, but this file was none other than the villain of the piece, the dark and shady pagefile.sys. Our hero, yours truly, swam through the dark recesses of the system configuration in search of the settings pane that would confirm my hunch, all the while my colleague's eyes growing wider with understanding and guilt. Eventually, I found it. The page file options were set to manual configuration, and that manual configuration was a default size of 1 terabyte, with permission to expand to 1.2. My colleague offered an explanation for his actions. Apparently, some 4 years ago, he fancied himself a game of Modern Warfare and was displeased to find it kept crashing. Rather than just quit some background applications or buy some more memory, he decided the best solution was to boost his page file size. First, a GB, no good. Maybe 2 GB. No dice. Eventually, he must have just opted for 1 followed by a random amount of zeros, happening to be an entire TB. Years passed, and he didn't notice the change day to day as the page file gradually grew fatter, gorging itself on any scraps of executable it could find. Slowly expanding to occupy 1.2 terabytes of his total 1.8. And that is how he has lived, without question, for 4 years. A page file size drop and reboot later, and he was a happy camper, and I had my first TFTS post. Edit. Wow, this blew up overnight, thanks for making it a good first post, all. Smile. Also, I've seen a lot of people ask why I'm doing comp sci for tech support / wanting to go into tech support in the first place. Truth is, I oversimplified things. I didn't think it was relevant, but the specifics are, I'm doing a Bachelor of Information Science with a double major in Computer Science and Information Technology. Because, honestly, I don't know specifically what I plan to do after graduating, just that I love IT and want to do something in that field. As for why tech support? After reading this subreddit, it sounds like it should keep me entertained. Our next story, why would you sell me an obsolete system? This comes from the wonderful world of home security systems customer support. My coworker fields this one. CW, Coworker, thank you for calling blah 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 security. How may I help you? Gog, grumpy old guy, gives name, address, password, blood sample of firstborn for verification purposes. Well, my system isn't accepting codes and won't turn on or off. I think it started after the storm that came through last night. CW, did lightning strike your house or close by? Gog, yes. CW, I see. Based on the age of the system, it probably took a surge. We're unable to get replacement parts anymore, so you'll need an upgrade. I can get someone in sales to call you with a price. Gog, well, can't you just send someone out to fix it? CW, we certainly can, but as it's obsolete equipment, it's unlikely they can repair it. You'd still be billed for the service call. This is where the customer gets irate. Gog, why would you sell me an obsolete system? CW, soft voice, well, sir, it was brand new in 1986. Our next story. I'm not a computer person. But allow me to be as unhelpful and condescending as possible while I demand you fix my problem. This actually happened a couple of weeks ago. As context, for those who haven't read my posts before, I work an out-of-hours IT desk. We support multiple businesses after hours when their IT teams leave for the day. It's 11:30 p.m., and I get a call through from my least favorite business we support. We have no systems access and very little in the way of documentation. Their calls are renowned for being a pain to deal with. EA, extremely affluent sounding British guy. Me, service desk, how can I help? EA, oh, hello. I'm not able to print. Me, okay, any error messages? Any signs of life from the printer? EA, now hold on, I'm not a computer person, so you'll need to use simple terms. Me, what happens when you print? EA, nothing happens. That's why I'm calling you. Me, do you see any messages appear on the screen when trying to print? EA, no. I have a particularly low tolerance for these kinds of callers who are unable to provide even basic details. This guy was also coming across as very condescending. Me, is your printer turned on? Can you see any lights? EA, of course. Me, can you walk me through what you generally do to print something? EA, I'm not a computer person, so you'll need to be more clear. Me, tell me how you'd usually print. EA, look here, I don't really understand what you're asking me. Me, what would you usually do to print? EA, I don't understand you. Me, okay, sir, I'd like to connect remotely to your computer so I can see what's on the screen. Is that okay? EA, this is all very complicated. I'm not sure what you want to do. Me, I'd like to access your computer so I can see what's wrong. EA, I'm sorry, can you explain that more clearly? Me, I'm not sure how much clearer I can actually be with this. I need to remotely connect to try and fix this for you. EA, look, this is terribly unfriendly for people who aren't technically savvy like myself. Why can't you fix this? Me, I'm trying to help you and fix it, but you haven't been able to provide a great amount of detail on the issue, so I'd like to remotely connect and take a look myself. EA, I'm not familiar with these technical terms. This is very hard. I don't understand why we have you people if you can't help people who aren't technically savvy. Me, I'm trying to help. However, as it's out of hours, our scope is limited. I need to remotely connect to see what's going on. I respect that you are not technically savvy, but at the same time, we do expect a certain level of existing knowledge from users in order to be able to provide our support service after hours. I can ask that the main service desk calls you back in the morning if you'd prefer? EA, no, look, this is very important and I need this fixed. How do you get on my screen? Me, firstly, I need you to open a web browser or just go to Google. EA, I just use this for email. What on earth is a web browser? Me, do you use Google? EA, yes, of course I do. Me, okay, please go to Google. We spend a painful amount of time getting GoToAssist working. Me, thank you. I'm now connected. I'm going to take a look at the printer setup now. Me, I see the printer is reporting not connected. Can you check to make sure it's plugged in, please? I googled the model number and this is an old-ass Epson printer. USB only. At this point, I've had enough of this caller's ineptness. EA. But I don't know how. Me. I'm sorry, I really can't help you with this part. You're the one physically located with the computer and the printer. Go to the printer and make sure any wires coming from it are plugged into the PC. EA. Okay. Several minutes later, I hear the unmistakable sound of a device being connected in Windows. Me. Okay, the printer is now showing as connected, so it looks like the plug was disconnected. Please try printing again. EA navigates to Outlook, opens an email about discounted camping products, and proceeds to print it off. Me. I can hear the printer in the background, so it looks like we're good now. EA. Yes, it's working, but you didn't help me at all. Click. EA was such a PITA. He also left Go to Assist running in the background, so I spent the next half an hour inconspicuously moving his mouse each time he tried to click something before I got bored and disconnected. Our next story, I know IT better than IT. A few years back, I was working as an IT manager in a manufacturing company. Like many industries, we had machines with embedded computer systems, what we called production machines because they produced stuff. These PCs were essentially normal desktop computers with data acquisition cards connected to a PLC or a secondary network card for an Ethernet-capable PLC. Typically, these PCs were set up during the commissioning of the production machine and then left untouched until the machine was retired, sometimes up to 20 years later. Keep in mind, that's 20 years in a hot, dusty factory environment. Having worked in similar environments before, I knew how critical it was to understand these systems inside and out. I ensured regular backups, tight refresh cycles, and spares when dealing with obsolete hardware or software. These weren't IT's usual responsibility, they fell under engineering or facilities. But most of the time, those teams welcomed IT's advice. Failures on these PCs could halt production entirely, making it crucial to manage them effectively. But that's where Too Expensive, the site's facilities manager, became a problem. Meet the cast. Airzone, me, the new IT manager. Too Expensive, facilities manager, obsessed with saving money and paranoid about losing control of his responsibilities. VPO, Vice President of Operations, a no-nonsense factory boss. Old boy, a retired legend, whose role we'll get to soon. The conflict. From the start, I clashed with Too Expensive. He constantly undermined my work. One major issue was network drops. I'd always order double runs, adding $50 $100 in materials to avoid $4,000 later. He'd override my orders, only to need additional drops later at full cost. Worse, when I asked about the production machine PCs. Me, hardware and software specs? Too expensive, that's my job. Get lost. Me, backup? Too expensive, that's my job. Get lost. And so on. Finally, I received a stern email forbidding me from touching these systems, with claims he had everything under control. Months later, I was helping a factory worker with their shared PC near a production machine. The machine's control system had two ancient NT4 PCs, coax networking, and a proprietary control application. The setup was functional but fragile. It was test and tag day, and Too Expensive was supervising the Sparky, electrician. My one instruction? Don't disconnect computer equipment unless it's powered off. Naturally, Too Expensive ignored this. His shutdown procedure was yanking the power cords. The PC rebooted with garbled screens and failed measurements. The operator called Too Expensive, but he was nowhere to be found. Enter the crisis team. With $1 million worth of product at risk and no backup machine available, the situation was dire. Too Expensive was unreachable, so I called the VPO and explained the situation. After some digging, I tracked down Old Boy, the retired expert who had implemented the machine decades ago. He agreed to help, for an exorbitant fee. Old Boy quickly assessed the damage, the database was corrupt, and there were no backups. Thankfully, his MO involved saving a backup copy of the database on the machine itself during setup. Using my familiarity with the software, I managed to patch the corrupted database file enough to load it into the configuration editor. Together, we rebuilt the database with 20 years worth of undocumented updates. After 4 intense days, the machine was back online. The fallout. When Too Expensive finally resurfaced, he demanded updates to report to the VPO, trying to take credit for the fix. Later, the VPO called me in. VPO, Too Expensive claims you didn't follow procedures, causing the crash, and that you failed to take backups. Me, and when we tried to call him? VPO, he claims he was busy contacting emergency contacts. I handed him Too Expensive's email forbidding me from managing the production machine PCs. Half an hour later, Too Expensive's account was locked, and his access card was disabled. Edit. Wow, this story resonated with so many of you. Thanks for the gold, kind stranger. Our next story, HR managers hate this one trick. Every office has their special users. The ones who can't figure out anything technical, everything is an emergency, and everything has to function exactly the same or they can't work. At my job, it is the HR lady. Since she is just HR, all her problems boil down to a printer error, Excel, Word, reboot and it works type of issues, and since I am the system admin, they are all my responsibility. However, every issue she has, she comes back to IT, walks right by my desk, goes to the programmer, manager, network admin and explains the issue. Every time, they either tell her to go to me, even though she gets BY, or relay the info to me to fix. A few weeks back, she had a problem with the calculations on an Excel spreadsheet. Everyone was at lunch, so she's forced to ask me. Immediately, I say it is probably rounding up or down because it is only off by a penny. This doesn't suffice, so she ignores me and waits until lunches are done to return. She goes to programmer guy and like usual, he passes it to me. I email her with a breakdown showing how it is rounding. She still wants programmer guy to look at it, so my manager responds with a message saying he will get to it when he can. Well, programmer guy is swamped, the new website launch is getting pushed out, her Excel problem gets shelved with her emails coming ever more frequent. My manager even resends my explanation, but she wants programmer guy to look at it. This is unacceptable, so she goes to the VP saying we aren't helping her. My boss sets up a meeting with the three of us for me to explain the issue. It was the shortest meeting ever because I start explaining it and our VP completely understands right away. The VP cuts me off, looks at HR lady and says, "You pulled me into a meeting for this ST?" That's it for now. See you in the next post.